Can the government protect us, really protect us from violence? That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. President Obama gave a rousing speech in Boston today saying that the city would never give in to violence and the nation will never be defeated by terrorists.
This time next year, on the third Monday in April, the world will return to this great American city to run harder than ever and to cheer even louder for the 118th Boston Marathon.
Nice job at that speech. But yesterday the president's tone was very different. He was angry about losing the gun control legislation in the Senate. As you may know, that body failed to pass gun purchase background checks. 5 Democrats even voted against the new law, all of them from pro-gun states. Now, why did the background checks fail? Surely it would be better if criminals and insane people were stopped from buying guns. Every sane person knows that. But checks will not keep guns out of the hands of bad people. They'll buy them illegally. They'll buy weapons illegally. If the president were really serious about protecting Americans from gun violence, he would federalize gun crimes and attach a criminal justice component to the gun check legislation. Here's what Mr. Obama should do. Registering firearms should be mandatory in this country. And if you're caught with an unregistered gun, you go to a federal prison for at least 5 years. Use a gun in the commission of a crime, 10 years. Law-abiding people with guns are not the problem. So let's give the police a big advantage. If the cops even find an unregistered gun by a stop and frisk, something like that, it's a felony. That would take gun criminals off the streets fast and obviously drastically cut gun violence. President Obama's gun legislation is targeted, pardon the pun, at law-abiding people, not criminals. And that's the reason he isn't getting anywhere. Some stats to back my opinion up. 2011, the FBI reports nearly 8,600 people were killed with firearms in the USA. That's down 10% from 2002. To provide perspective, more than 32,000 people were killed in auto accidents. More perspective. No law is going to stop crazy people from committing mass murder. Even Mr. Obama admits that. And finally, a word about terrorism. Since the attack on 9/11, 34 people have been killed by terrorists in the USA. 34. That includes the Fort Hood shootings and the Beltway sniper back in 2002. So authorities are doing a darn good job protecting us, and we should all be grateful. Bottom line, the government can protect us from harm somewhat if it acts in a smart and tough way. No system's perfect. Boston proves that. But if we want to cut violence, whether crime or terrorism, we have to put theory aside and find out what really works. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction. With us, the co-host of The Five, Bob Beckel. So you get my point, I'm sure, a brilliant man like yourself, about why this legislation is not getting anywhere, because it's targeted, as I said, at law-abiding people, not the criminals.
Yeah, but this, first of all, I like your idea. I think it's a good idea about the federal registration. This bill is targeted. Nobody who commits a crime with a gun does not get a gun that was not bought legally. That's the whole problem. We wanted to put checks for people who buy things at gun shows. Where in Virginia, next to my state, you can go and buy 7 of them. Now, these guys send a runner out from D.C., he buys 7, no checks, brings them back, sells them on the street to criminals.
Right.
Every single gun in America used in a crime was bought legally to begin with.
Now, I hate to do this, Beckel, because you know I'm your pal, right? I hate to just burst your bubble.
Yeah, well, you're not going to, but go ahead.
Yeah, I will. There's more than 100 million guns right now.
That's correct.
On the streets.
Right.
So any kind of registration or anything like that is a moot point, because with those 100 million, the criminals can start a big industry. And they can bring them in through Mexico. And they can bring them in through Canada. So let's be real. If you attach my component, as you said you agree with, the federalizing of the gun crimes, and if you're going to force law-abiding people, and many of them don't want to because they feel once the government gets that data, then the government's eventually going to take their guns away. That's the paranoia that's running in the right-wing circles in some places. Okay. But I understand that paranoia. Why trust the federal government? But if you do the criminal component, then there's a greater good involved. And I believe most gun owners would say, okay, I don't really like the registration, but if you're going to put away the bad guys, I'll support it.
Are you kidding me? The NRA would go up the wall.
I don't think so.
Those thugs over there don't know any kind of single gun piece of legislation.
If the NRA would say, I don't support that then they would lose all their power in
well,
this
first
country.
of all, they are a straw.
Right, so that's what would happen.
Okay, but listen. First of all, these Democrats have jumped ship. It was a cowardly act in the face of the NRA that's not nearly as powerful as they think they are.
Whatever.
I get back to my point. You can talk about all you want of 100 million guns here and bring them in through Canada. Every single gun used in a crime in this country was bought legally.
Fine. I just punched the big gap.
No, you didn't. You didn't punch it at all. Tell me how you punched it.
Okay, I'll tell you again, but I don't want to belabor it. If you have gun registration, immediately a secondary gun market will arise with so many guns in the country and unregulated guns coming in. Yeah, but that doesn't matter because they'll be sold illegally. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, to use a cliche. All right, you get it. You just don't want to get it.
No, I don't get it.
All right, here's Al Sharpton. I want you to react to Al Sharpton. You know Al. He's your pal, right?
Yeah, he's a pal.
Okay, great. Roll the tape.
With all of these threats and all of these actual attacks, 3 people dead in Boston, 1 an 8-year-old child. Why are we even debating background checks in the Senate? I mean, how can we have such upheaval, such bedlam, and people don't even want to check who we allow to have deadly weapons? Something don't make sense to me.
It's nice the Reverend has a band in his radio studio. I like that. This is so ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous at all.
Equating the Boston bombing with background checks.
What is your problem with background checks? What is your problem with it?
I don't have any problem with it.
Well, then why don't you let them happen in gun shows?
Because
guns that are bought legally are used in crime.
Because it's useless.
It's not useless.
All right. I'm not going to debate it.
Of course you don't want to debate it because you can't win the debate.
I just won it.
You did not win the debate. I told you they go to Virginia, they buy guns legally at a gun show, they bring them to D.C., they're used in crime. Now, what does it take for you to understand that?
And I told you there's 100 million on the street already, and
they're
more
not on the street. They're at people's houses.
Okay, wherever they are.
All right.
Al Sharpton, equating gun registration with the bombing in Boston. Does that make any sense to you?
I don't think it makes sense to equate anything with the bombing in Boston. Everybody ought to keep their mouth shut till they catch somebody, and then these people get buried. That's the best thing to do.
Well, that's good. I don't understand sometimes. This is personal and a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer it. You put forth your point of view about Virginia, right? Mm-hmm. We all heard it. I then knocked it down by saying that even if you start registration today, the secondary gun market is so vast and so accessible because guns will come through Mexico and Canada in here that it doesn't make any difference. And then you just totally blow that off as some kind of fantasy.
Where is the secondary gun market? What are you talking about? There's
the secondary guns
out there owned by citizens who generally are people who abide by the law. So what's going to happen? Criminals going to go steal them? They're going to knock on doors and buy them?
Secondary gun market will come through Canada and Mexico.
Now you're down to Canada and Mexico.
Which I said 4 times.
No,
already.
You dropped the 100 million off of that, but go ahead.
And the 100 million already here, a component of those will find their way into the marketplace for money.
Much fewer than there are now from gun shows. That's where you made a mistake. You ought to go to a gun show and watch them. They buy guns. They use it illegally.
All right, Bob Beckel, everybody. There he is.
Pleasure.
Directly ahead.